Welcome to the show. My guest today is Chris Ahern, the Vice President of Federal at Smartsheet. Chris, welcome to the discussion.
Good to be here, Jason. Thanks for having me.
Let me set just a little bit of context for our conversation today. We know data is the fuel that's driving agency mission success. The challenge for many agencies is pulling the data out of silos and aggregating it so senior executives can make better decisions. The thirst for data and the need for tools to help collect and understand it is growing off the charts. Dell Tech, a market research firm, estimates that agencies will spend more than $4 billion by 2024 on data analytics tools. That spending is on top of the other drivers like cloud and infrastructure modernization and workforce training around using these big data tools. The benefits of breaking down the data silos and integrating data are huge. During the pandemic, agencies saw them firsthand when sharing information across the agency and government-wide, helping improve citizen services and achieving mission goals. A paper from the Harvard Kennedy School of Government found that the benefits of using data to move toward a leading indicator instead of a lagging indicator includes financial savings, operational improvements, and increased faith and trust in government. The key to achieving these and other improvements is real-time access to the data and analysis to ensure changes can be made sooner than later, and the leadership are all working from the same page. So, how can agencies move toward this data-driven environment? Well, Chris, that's where you come in. Once again, I'm joined by Chris Ahern, the Vice President of Federal at Smartsheet. Now, Chris, one of the things that underscores this move toward data and getting out of silos and driving towards real-time is this IT modernization effort that we seem to talk about all the time. What's the connection? Help me understand kind of the why the legacy IT modernization and data and really driving towards the better decision-making are all coming together.
So what we see in our customer base, which includes Fortune 500 companies, federal agencies, a number of different customers, if you look over the landscape of technology over the years, and you and I recall probably 10 years ago, right, where most of the work that federal workers was doing every day was in large, and yes, they were legacy systems. Mainframe, ERP, those sorts of things. And generally those systems were written more with organizational needs, not necessarily user needs in mind. And ultimately, I think one of the pitfalls of systems like that is they didn't stand the test of time. And a lot of new requirements came, priorities shifted quickly, systems were big and rigid and couldn't move. And then more recently, we see the explosion of desktop and cloud tools, right? So you think Zoom and Teams, where were they 5 years ago if they weren't in our life? And same with Slack and chat and those sorts of things. So really what we see happening in our customers is much less reliance on those big monolithic systems. And people, Gartner has a stat that says people do 60% of their work is self-managed, which means that a large part of their job has to be accomplished using what's on their desktop or what they can access on the cloud. And nobody tells them exactly how to do it. Sure, they get some training and those sorts of things, but they have to build processes, they have to build workflows, they have to integrate and get the data that they need, and those sorts of things. More recently, and you've probably been watching GSA and their cloud adoption, they like to say that they're on digital transformation 2.0 now. Right, where they've already gone through, one iteration, 5 years worth of, various cloud tools and some of these newer technologies they've deployed, and they've kind of gotten to the point where they say, hey, I need to refresh that now, right? So I think, when you think legacy modernization, you have to think about, okay, where are people, right? And to your point about data, I think a lot of those, older systems they didn't think about collaboration and sharing data and those sorts of things back when they were, when those systems were put in place, right? And now in today's world and today's environment, pretty much every function in the government is a team sport, and the ability to share data and have people visualize things that you're working on and those sorts of things is critical.
You mentioned the ERP systems and other kind of larger legacy systems, and you and I could probably talk longer about the word legacy a little bit because
sure.
System is new today, and tomorrow it's now legacy. So I think there's a bigger piece there. But I think your point of it's not really written for user needs. Are you seeing that the customers are starting to understand that and try to say, okay, this served our purpose, but now we need to move to a system that is more user focused, more about customer experience and the like?
I think, in a lot of cases, there's a rationalization process agencies have to go through. I mean, I'm not, a lot of those big old systems are critical. They're transactional. They have archiving capability. They're things that have to be done. I think my point is for the majority of work being done by knowledge workers in the federal government is it's being done elsewhere. And yes, they're still where they have to have those systems in place. Systems of record. They're called that for a reason, right? That they're still entering into, but the majority of their day is spent outside of that.
And when they go outside of that, that's where that collaboration can happen. And I think that the key here is how to get to that point of collaboration. We saw the pandemic, and I think probably a lot of us are maybe tired of talking about the pandemic, but that really showed the value of collaboration tools. Is that what's really the other piece that's spurring this? Not just the move off legacy, but, oh wow, during that last 20 months, we've really changed the way we work.
Well, I think it really cemented that shift that was already going on. I think about our Engage conference, which was October of last year. We had a guest speaker on public sector, happened to be a woman from a large school system in Colorado, 22,000 students, 3,000 staff members. And she was telling the story of essentially, in a matter of weeks, having to stand up an online school, which they had never, ever done before. Right. And so when you think about a task like that, right, once in a lifetime, let's hope, once in a lifetime sort of thing that you're going to need to do, sure, IT is going to play a role. They have to put the bandwidth in place. They have to make sure the equipment's out there. They have to make sure it's secure and all those sorts of things. But to stand up an online school, you have to figure out staffing, you have to figure out training, you have to figure out how you're going to record grades, you have to figure out attendance and how you're going to record that. And you had all these staff people, teachers and other staff that are sitting at home, right? And they have a bunch of tools on their desktop, and they in that particular case, were able to kind of meet that need, and they stood the school up and were successful with it, right? And that took place at pretty much every school system across the country, maybe across the world. But it also took place in a lot of federal agencies under different circumstances. I just think that's a good relatable example.
I think one of the things we've seen over the last year is when you talk about the move to the cloud and that desktop, like tools and things to make that collaboration easier. I think that's the aha moment for a lot of agencies. What are you hearing from customers who, okay, we had that aha moment, now how do we keep the momentum going?
Yeah, I think there's this shift is still going on to where organizations and agencies have really sort of realized that, the potential, right, in that story I told about Colorado, wow, these people are pretty innovative, like they got a whole lot done. This worked pretty well, right? So, how do we harness that? And, some of the statistics I've read around that, I mean, Gartner says that by the year 2024, 80% of all new technology products and services are going to be built by non-technologists. I read another survey, I think it was Accenture, it was 89% of federal leaders said that they wanted to tap the democratization of technology as the next wave of innovation. And I look at a website called No Code Census, where they do a lot of sampling of folks that are using no code, and their findings are that it's using no code solutions is 4.6 times faster and cheaper than doing it on a traditional technology platform. So I think a switch has kind of flipped, if you will. Originally it was necessity was the mother of invention during the pandemic, but now I think as we are moving out of that, people are starting to say, well wow, this really works. We should do more of it.
Your point about the rise of low code, no code platforms, I think is really interesting, because when I talk to CIOs and others, that comes up time and again. You're seeing it more and more. It's always this kind of like early wave of people who talk about it, and then the hype cycle catches up. I think the hype cycle has caught up, and maybe we're even past it now, because I think they're seeing that goal of democratization. And is that creating what maybe is a new term that we should also start to use too, is a collaborative work management, a platform where you and I can, no matter where we're located, get together and maybe code or maybe share data or whatever we do?
Yeah, I think on the collaborative work management side, I mean it's a category that Gartner and Forrester and other analysts are now tracking. And what typifies a CWM solution? It's actually pretty simple. I mean, the first tenet is usability, and you need to have a capability that's out there that folks can learn in a matter of hours or days as opposed to months. That's a big tenet. And then the other part is cloud, right? So if you think about it, hey, I'm working on Excel, I'm working on a Google Doc, I'm working on something that's, that only I can see, then I have to save it, then I have to email it to you, and then I have to report on it and, get my boss, right? And all those sorts of things. Well, I'm jumping from tool to tool and place to place. Right. I mean, the average person, I saw a study from Pegasystems, switches screens 1,100 times a day, right? So it's not necessarily the best way to work, and CWM is a platform where leveraging the cloud again, you can do all that stuff in one place. Now, from a user perspective, they tend to like it because they can automate things they do every day, and that they do over and over again every day. They can create workflows. They can collaborate with others. One of the things they really like is they don't have to go through the big exercise of preparing reports for the boss for the big monthly meeting and those sorts of things, which becomes a separate event. And then again, leveraging the cloud, leadership really likes it because they're able to see an aggregate of what all their employees are doing, how they're tracking across projects and processes and those sorts of things. We have a number of customers that leverage CWM to roll out new initiatives and strategies, right? Typically an organization rolls out the 5 pillars of strategy for the year, and then gets 6 months into the year and they're like, hey, how are we doing against this? Right? And CWM gives you the capability to actually see, like, is that what people are working on day in and day out?
Let's maybe put a little finer point on what collaborative work management is. It's a platform. I know Smartsheet is well involved here. Is it a platform? Am I buying something? Am I hooking to a cloud? Or is it a dashboard? Help me visualize it.
Yeah, sure. The collaborative work management, they are the products in that category, yes, they're all cloud-based as far as I know. Again, there's a user interface. In our case, it can look like a grid, like a spreadsheet. It can be Kanban. It can be a number of different things, and a lot of the other products have the same things. But the intent is, any of those formats, Jason, somebody's seen that before. Somebody's probably worked in it before, right? And if that's what they're used to, that means they can get up to speed relatively quickly on a CWM solution. And then generally the other things that are built in is, it's the ability to build automations really easily. The ability for me to collaborate with you on a platform, and whether you have a license for Smartsheet or not, I can email you and ask you for an update, and when I get that update from you, it'll go right back into my project sheet where I'm tracking it. So those are pretty compelling, and people can execute all their work in one place.
I think the key, among other things, is it's on formats that people have used before. And when you're talking about new technology or a new process, okay, I recognize this, I understand the basics. I'm no Excel expert, but I've used it enough to know a little bit. So if someone gives me some, this looks like Excel, okay, I can make it work.
Yeah.
Chris, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we can maybe get into some of those user use cases and really understand the benefits of using a collaborative work management.
Sure.
First, we're going to take a quick break. You're listening to the discussion Innovation in Government, sponsored by Carahsoft on Federal News Network.